In our fast-paced, modern world, the Amish people live a life apart, quietly preserving values that many of us fear are slipping away. Their days are centered on faith, family, humility, and community. There's a gentle rhythm to their lives that carries timeless wisdom. Today, we'll explore 20 simple life lessons rooted in Amish tradition. Stories and insights that remind us of what truly matters. 1. Family is the heart of life. On a summer evening in Lancaster County, an Amish family of 10 gathers around a long wooden table. The soft glow of a kerosene lamp lights up homemade dishes of bread, potatoes, and green beans from their garden. Grandpa sits at the head, with little ones giggling by his side and parents bowing their heads in thanks. In this humble farmhouse, dinner isn't just a meal. It's family time. No one is in a rush. They pray together, eat together, and then linger to share stories about the day. An older son talks about fixing a fence with his father. A young daughter proudly shows a pie she baked with Mama. Laughter and warmth fill the room. In this moment, every member of the family, from the toddling baby to the gray-haired grandparent, feels loved and connected. In our modern lives, it's easy to have everyone eating separately, on the couch, in front of a TV, or with eyes glued to phones. The Amish remind us to treasure family bonds and make time for one another. We can bring a bit of this wisdom into our own homes by sitting down for meals together or setting aside one evening a week for family time. It might be a Sunday supper or a game night with the grandkids. What matters is being truly present. Family is the heart of Amish life, and it can be ours too, providing strength, comfort, and a sense of belonging that no technology or busy schedule can replace. 2. Honor the elderly and their wisdom. In a small Amish community, it's common to see multiple generations under one roof. Picture an Amish farmhouse where a Doddy house, grandfather house, is attached. A little home for Grandma and Grandpa right next door to their children and grandchildren. Every morning, 7-year-old Jacob slips over to Grandpa's porch to bring him coffee and hear a story. Grandpa Abram might recount how he lived through a hard winter long ago, or how he built that very house by hand as a young man. The children listen wide-eyed as Grandma teaches her granddaughter how to knead bread dough, hands gently guiding little fingers. In the evenings, Grandpa sits in his rocking chair by the wood stove, humming a quiet hymn while the family gathers around. He might not work the fields anymore, but his presence is a well of comfort and guidance for everyone. The respect he is given is evident in the way his son seeks his advice on planting crops, and how his daughter asks him to say the blessing at dinner. In this home, age is not seen as a burden, but as a blessing. Many of us live in societies where elders often live far away or in care homes, and their wisdom can be overlooked. Amish communities show us a different way to honor our elders, care for them, and value their life stories. We, too, can call our aging parents or grandparents regularly, include them in family decisions, and learn from their experiences. Perhaps it's as simple as asking Grandma to teach you that old family recipe, or listening to Grandpa's memories of when he was young. By respecting and cherishing our elders, we keep them close to our hearts and remind them and ourselves that they still matter. Their guidance can light our path, just as Grandpa Abram's stories light the way for young Jacob. 3. Community comes together. Neighbors helping neighbors. Early one autumn morning, a fire tragically destroyed an Amish family's barn. This could have spelled ruin for their livelihood, but in an Amish community, no one faces hardship alone. The very next day, dozens of buggies arrive at the farm just after dawn. It's time for a barn raising. Men from miles around climb onto the charred foundation with tools in hand, and women set up long tables covered in home-cooked food to keep the workers nourished. Hammers start ringing and saws start cutting in a well-practiced harmony. Teen boys hoist beams alongside their fathers, and even little boys carry wooden pegs, eager to help. By late afternoon, unbelievably, a brand new barn frame stands tall where ashes lay the day before. As evening falls, the last nail is driven in. The family whose barn burned down stands together, tears of gratitude in their eyes, surrounded by neighbors who answered their unspoken call. In one day, a burden shared became a burden lifted by community. Such stories of mutual aid are common in Amish country, whether it's barn raisings, quilting bees to make blankets for newlyweds, or gathering funds to help pay a neighbor's medical bills. It's a way of life to reach out and lift each other up. In our own lives, many of us barely know our neighbors' names, but we can learn from the Amish sense of community. We, too, can foster a spirit of helping one another. Maybe it starts by simply checking in on a neighbor who lives alone, offering to pick up groceries for someone who's ill, or coming together as a community group to support a family in crisis. When we show up for each other, without waiting to be asked, we weave bonds of trust and friendship. The Amish teach us that communities grow strong, not just through geographic proximity, but through shared acts of kindness and support. In a world where many feel isolated, choosing to be a good neighbor can bring us all a little closer. 4. Live with gratitude. At sunrise on an Amish farm, 12-year-old Mary swings open the chicken coop door to gather eggs, while her father guides the plow horse in the field. The morning air is crisp. As they pause to wipe sweat from their brows, they both quietly admire the pink and gold colors spreading in the sky. "Dank Gott," the father whispers in Pennsylvania Dutch. Thank God for the beauty of the morning and the strength to do their work. Later that day, at supper time, Mary's family bows their heads as her mother says a simple thanks. For the food on the table, for a day of health, for the family all together. The meal is humble. Stew made from their garden vegetables and bread they baked that afternoon. But in that moment, it feels like a feast. After dinner, Mary and her little brother catch fireflies in the yard, their laughter echoing. They end the day thankful for these small joys, a full belly, a loving family, and nature's little wonders. Gratitude is woven into every prayer, every routine, every heartbeat of their day. The Amish show us that gratitude isn't about having a life free of hardship. It's about appreciating what we do have, however simple. In our fast-moving world, it's easy to focus on our problems or what we wish we had. But when we pause, like that Amish father at sunrise, we find so much to be thankful for. A roof over our heads, a friend who checks in, a cup of warm coffee in the morning. Living with gratitude can transform our outlook. We can start small, maybe keeping a daily gratitude journal or sharing one thing we're thankful for at dinner each night. Over time, these small acts of appreciation add up. The more we give thanks, the more we realize how rich life truly is, not necessarily in material terms, but in the things money can't buy: love, health, nature, and grace. The Amish gratitude for life's simple gifts reminds us to say thank you more often and mean it. 5. Embrace simple living. In a world overflowing with gadgets and constant updates, an Amish home remains a place of remarkable simplicity. Step into the Yoder family's farmhouse. There's a handmade quilt on each bed, oil lamps on the shelves, and floors you could almost see your reflection in from that morning's scrubbing. The walls are unadorned by electronics. No televisions, no computers humming, just the gentle tick of a wind-up clock. 15-year-old Sarah Yoder spends her afternoon helping her mother can peaches. They sit together peeling fruit in comfortable silence, occasionally chatting about the day. There is work to do, but no rush, no multitasking with phones or radios. Once the jars are boiling on the stove, Sarah carries a basket of scraps out to the chickens, walking barefoot in the grass and feeling the warm earth under her feet. In the evening, the family gathers on the porch as the sun sets. They sing a favorite hymn softly or simply listen to the crickets. Life is quiet and plain, but it is full of the very things many of us find we're missing. By living simply, without excess clutter or constant distractions, the Amish have space for what matters: conversation, contemplation, and connection. Their example invites us to examine our own lives. What if we simplified a little? We might declutter our homes, keeping only items we truly use or that truly bring us joy. We could designate tech-free times, perhaps an hour each evening to read, walk, or talk without the TV blaring or phone beeping. Embracing simplicity might mean cooking a basic homemade meal with family instead of fast food, or finding entertainment in playing cards with friends rather than scrolling through social media. When we pare down to the essentials, we often find we've been missing the beauty of an uncluttered life. The Amish prove that less really can be more peace, more focus, and more gratitude for the few things we do have. In our own modern way, choosing simplicity can help us reclaim calm and contentment. 6. Stay humble. In Amish country, you won't find people clamoring for the spotlight or boasting about their achievements. Humility is a way of life. Consider an Amish craftsman named Samuel, known by locals, more than he'd like, perhaps, for building some of the finest wooden rocking chairs in the county. One day, a visitor from the city stops by Samuel's workshop after hearing about these famous chairs. She admires the smooth curves and sturdy joints and says, "This is the most beautiful handiwork I've ever seen. You should put your name on it so everyone knows you made it." Samuel, with sawdust still on his sleeves, simply smiles and shakes his head. "I'm happy if the chair serves you well, ma'am," he says softly. He charges her a fair price, no more than he would charge his Amish neighbors. After she leaves, Samuel quietly returns to work on the next chair, never once puffed up by the praise. He'll likely use a portion of that money to help a young couple in the community or donate anonymously to someone's medical fund, as is often done. For Samuel, making a good chair is not about glory. It's about doing the task well and honestly, then moving on to the next task with a grateful heart. This everyday humility is seen in how the Amish dress alike in plain clothes, how they often avoid posing for photographs, and how they speak softly of their own accomplishments, if at all. In a world where we're encouraged to promote ourselves at every turn, their example shines quietly. Staying humble means remembering that none of us is above another, and that our talents are gifts to share, not medals to show off. We can practice this by giving credit to others at work or in family projects, by listening more than we talk, and by resisting the urge to seek praise. Instead of flaunting success, we might let our deeds speak for themselves. When we remain humble, like Samuel, we invite respect without even asking for it. We become approachable and grounded. The Amish know a simple truth. A humble heart can hold more gratitude and love, because it isn't filled with ego. In our lives, letting go of pride opens us up to learning from others and appreciating the quiet contributions everyone makes each day. 7. The value of hard work. At dawn, the Amish Miller family's farm comes alive with activity. Hard work begins with the rooster's crow. 16-year-old John swings his legs out of bed without a single complaint. He knows the cows won't wait, and this morning it's his job to milk them. In the barn's cool, dim light, he pats Bess the cow and begins the rhythmic task, just as his father taught him. Meanwhile, his mother and sisters are in the kitchen before sunrise, kneading bread dough and packing lunches to fuel the family through their labors. By the time the sun has inched above the horizon, the barn is filled with fresh milk, the garden has been weeded, and the smell of baking bread drifts through the yard. The work will continue all day, plowing fields, mending fences, washing laundry by hand, each task flowing into the next. It's not easy work. In fact, by midday, everyone's muscles ache. But there's laughter in the fields as John's little brothers race to see who can fill a basket of corn fastest, and there's singing in the kitchen as his sisters hang linens on the line. Come evening, the family gathers on the porch, dog-tired but content. John stretches out and feels the satisfying fatigue that comes from honest labor. He watches the sunset, knowing he put in a good day's work for his family. In that tiredness is a sense of pride and purpose. The Amish grow up with the understanding that work, no matter how tough, is honorable and even joyful when done together and for a good purpose. They find dignity in manual labor that many of us have forgotten. In our modern lives, we often seek to avoid hard work with gadgets or outsource our chores whenever possible. And while there's nothing wrong with efficiency, there is something deeply fulfilling about rolling up our sleeves and doing a job ourselves. We can take a page from the Amish work ethic by embracing our daily tasks instead of dreading them. Tending a garden, cleaning the house, fixing something broken, or cooking a homemade meal can be transformative when we approach it with a willing spirit. Hard work teaches patience, resilience, and self-reliance. And as any Amish farmer will tell you, the harvest is sweetest to those who have labored in the field. So whether it's a day at the office, an afternoon with the grandchildren, or mowing our own lawn, we can strive to give it our best effort. In doing so, we rediscover the simple satisfaction of a job well done and the self-respect that comes with it. 8. Practice patience. Slow down and trust time. On a quiet country road, an Amish horse-drawn buggy makes its steady way toward town. Inside, Mary and Eli are taking their weekly trip to the market. The horses' hooves clop a soothing, unhurried rhythm. Cars occasionally rush by, but Mary and Eli aren't bothered. They wave as they continue their journey at their own pace. What might be a 15-minute drive by car takes them well over an hour by buggy, but that hour is filled with soft conversation and the sights of blooming wildflowers along the roadside. They've learned to find peace in the waiting. Similarly, back at home, little Samuel is learning patience in another way. He's tending a tiny patch of the family garden all by himself this year. Every day he waters and pulls weeds, watching and waiting as the seeds he planted slowly sprout and grow. He asks his papa, "When will the tomatoes come?" Papa just smiles. "In good time, Sammy. God teaches us patience with those tomatoes." Sure enough, weeks later, Samuel is beaming as he carries in a basket of red, ripe tomatoes that seem to have taken forever, but were worth the wait. Amish life, from traveling by buggy to farming by seasons, teaches patience as a daily virtue. In contrast, our modern life often runs on instant gratification, instant messaging, fast food, next-day deliveries. Waiting can feel like an inconvenience. But when everything comes instantaneously, we miss the beauty of anticipation and the growth that happens in the process. Practicing patience is like taking a deep breath in a hurried world. Maybe it's waiting for a cake to bake from scratch instead of buying one, or allowing a project at work to unfold with careful attention instead of rushing a result. It could be as simple as listening fully to someone without jumping in, or giving ourselves time to heal from life's setbacks without forcing a solution. The Amish remind us that all good things, be it a crop, a handmade quilt, or even a relationship, take time to flourish. By slowing our pace, even just a little, and trusting the process, we often find that the journey has its own gifts. Patience brings a calmer mind and a gentler soul, helping us act with grace rather than haste. 9. Forgive and let go. In a small Amish village, two farmers, Isaac and Aaron, once had a misunderstanding over a property line where their fields met. A new fence was built slightly off mark, and tempers flared one afternoon. Harsh words were spoken, an uncommon occurrence in their peaceful community. That evening, Isaac went home angry, stewing over the offense. But as is their custom, both men sought counsel from their wives and elders, who gently reminded them of their commitment to forgiveness. The very next morning, Isaac hitched his buggy and drove to Aaron's home. He found his neighbor already waiting by the gate with an apologetic smile. Before Isaac could even start his speech, Aaron spoke. "I am sorry for my part in yesterday." Isaac, relieved, responded in kind. In a simple embrace, they let the grievance go as if it had never happened. Together, they decided to move the fence to a fair spot, working side by side, each insisting on giving the other a few extra feet of land as a sign of goodwill. By sunset, not only was the fence straightened, but the friendship was stronger. In true Amish fashion, their dispute ended not in lasting bitterness, but in understanding. They chose forgiveness over pride. The Amish take to heart the biblical teaching to forgive 70 times 7. There are even famous real-life examples, like when an Amish community publicly forgave the man who caused them terrible harm. Forgiveness for them is not just a lofty idea, but a daily practice, whether the hurt is small or unimaginable. For the rest of us, forgiveness can be one of the hardest lessons to live by. We often carry old hurts, sometimes for years, letting them weigh us down. But holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal. It only burns the one holding it. The Amish show us that to forgive is to free oneself from that burn. It doesn't mean forgetting the lesson or condoning a wrong. It means we refuse to let resentment poison our hearts. In our own lives, perhaps we can think of someone who wronged us, a friend who spoke hurtful words, a family member who let us down, or even ourselves for past mistakes, and finally decide to set that burden down. Write a letter we never send, say a prayer, or simply whisper, "I forgive you," even if the person isn't there. The act of forgiving is as much for our healing as theirs. When we forgive and let go, we make room in our hearts for peace, and maybe even reconciliation. Isaac and Aaron's mended friendship is proof that forgiveness can rebuild what anger seeks to destroy. 10. Be content with what you have. It's early spring, and Anna, a young Amish mother, hangs laundry on the line outside her home. As she pins up her children's simple, handmade dresses and shirts, she notices an English, non-Amish family who moved in down the road. Their shiny SUV pulls up to a large new house, and the mother is unloading bag after bag of store-bought goods. New clothes, fancy gadgets, toys that light up and make noise. For a brief moment, Anna wonders what it might be like to have all those things for her own family. But then she turns to see her two little girls chasing each other between fluttering sheets, their giggles filling the air. She smiles, recalling the morning. Her daughters happily dressing their dollies in clothes Anna sewed from leftover fabric, her husband coming in from milking with a broad grin just because the cow had a healthy calf. They have everything they truly need. That evening, the family gathers in their small living room. There's no television, just a well-worn Bible and a few children's books on the shelf. Anna's husband reads a favorite passage by lamplight, while the kids curl up on their parents' laps. Contentment washes over Anna. The new neighbors might have fancier things, she thinks, but in this modest room, there is an abundance of love and peace that money can't buy. The Amish live by the principle that if their basic needs are met, and their family and community are with them, then they are rich. It's a stark contrast to the constant striving many of us feel. The push to upgrade to the latest phone, the bigger house, the better car, the trendiest clothes. While there's nothing wrong with enjoying life's comforts, we often forget to appreciate what we already have. How many of us have closets full of clothes but still feel we have nothing to wear, or gadgets we barely use yet still yearn for the next one? The gentle contentment of Amish life encourages us to take stock of our own blessings. A roof over our head, enough food on the table, the health of loved ones, the warmth of a pet curled at our feet. These are life's true treasures. When we shift our focus from what's missing to what's present, we cultivate contentment. We might try this. Next time we're tempted by envy or dissatisfaction, pause and list 5 things we're grateful for in that moment. Often we'll find our needs are already met, and then some. By being content with what we have, we find a steady kind of happiness, one not easily shaken by the ups and downs of life. The Amish teach us that contentment turns what we have into enough. Eleventh, take pride in craftsmanship and hands-on skills. In a cozy Amish workshop smelling of fresh-cut wood, a father and son are hard at work. 11-year-old Matthew stands at a workbench beside his dad, Jonas, as they carefully sand the curved edge of a rocking horse they're crafting for the youngest sibling's Christmas gift. No power tools buzz here, just the soothing scrape of sandpaper and the occasional tap of a hammer. Jonas shows Matthew how to fit the pieces together with wooden pegs instead of nails, a technique his own father taught him. It takes them several evenings to get it just right. When at last the rocking horse is assembled and painted a gentle chestnut brown, they step back to admire their work. The toy is simple, sturdy, built to last through generations of play. Matthew runs his hand over the smooth wood and beams with quiet pride. On Christmas morning, when his little sister squeals with delight at the sight of the rocking horse, Matthew's heart nearly bursts, knowing he helped make this with his own 2 hands. In that moment, he understands why his father finds such joy in craftsmanship. Amish culture prizes hands-on skills: quilting, woodworking, blacksmithing, baking, farming. These are not seen as old-fashioned chores, but as art forms and acts of love. A hand-stitched quilt might take many months to complete. A well-built barn involves the whole community's labor. The value isn't just in the finished item, but in the care and patience invested along the way. In our convenience-driven age, we often opt to buy replacements rather than fix things, or we rely on mass-produced goods for every need. But there is something deeply human about working with our hands and creating. When we learn a craft or make something ourselves, we connect with our innate creativity and patience. Maybe you have always wanted to grow vegetables, knit a scarf, bake bread, or tinker with woodworking tools. Take a small step into it. Plant a tomato seedling, sew a patch on a torn shirt, build a birdhouse, or cook a family recipe from scratch. Feel the texture, notice the process, and don't worry if it's not perfect. The goal isn't perfection. It's the pride and independence that comes from saying, "I made this myself." The Amish, with their beautiful handmade quilts and sturdy furniture, remind us that in a world of disposable goods, the things we create with care can become heirlooms and sources of personal pride. Moreover, by cultivating hands-on skills, we gain self-sufficiency and confidence. As Matthew learned in the workshop, the real gift is not just the rocking horse, it's the knowledge, skill, and joy gained in making it. 12. Find peace in nature's rhythms. In the hush of early morning, Amish farmer Rachel steps outside her home and feels the dew on her bare feet. The world is still a moment, the sky brushed with the pale light before sunrise. She inhales the fresh scent of wet grass and blooming wildflowers. Down the path, her husband is already guiding their horse-drawn plow through the field, turning dark, rich soil that steams a bit in the cool air. Birds begin their chorus as dawn breaks fully, and Rachel can't help but pause in her chores to admire a golden sunbeam filtering through the oak trees. Later in the day, after hours of tending the garden and livestock, Rachel takes her youngest child, a toddling boy, for a short walk to the creek. They sit on the bank and toss pebbles, watching the ripples and listening to the gentle babble of water. In the distance, they hear the laughter of her older children picking wild blackberries. Surrounded by rustling leaves and the soft clop of their horse in the field, Rachel feels deeply connected to the land. Each season brings its work and its wonder. Planting in spring, harvest in fall, quiet snowfall in winter where the fields rest, and they, too, find a bit of rest. For the Amish, nature isn't something you visit on the occasional hike. It's an ever-present partner in life. They live by the sun and seasons, attuned to the subtle shifts in the weather and the soil. This closeness to nature brings a sense of peace and belonging in the world, knowing that life has its cycles and we're a part of it. Many of us live indoors, moving from house to car to building, barely touching the natural world in our daily routine. But there is profound calm to be found in nature's rhythms if we take a moment to immerse ourselves in it. We can start with small steps. Enjoy a morning cup of coffee on the porch, listening to birds. Take a slow walk in the evening to notice the sunset. Tend a few potted plants or a small garden and watch them grow. Maybe spend time watching the rain from the window instead of hurrying it away, or take a drive into the countryside on a weekend to reconnect with fields and forests. When we align a bit more with nature's pace, we often find our stress slipping away. The trees aren't in a rush. The clouds move at their leisure, and the seasons remind us that there is a time for growth, a time for harvest, a time for rest. Amish wisdom here is simple. Slow down and enjoy the natural world that God, or the universe, has given us, and we will find ourselves refreshed and centered. 13. Keep faith at the center. Come Sunday morning in Amish country, you won't hear the ringing of church bells from a steeple. Instead, you'll notice buggies converging on a farmhouse or a barn. It's Church Sunday, which in many Amish communities happens every other week at a different family's home. In one such gathering, the Glick family has prepared their big barn for worship. Long wooden benches, normally stacked in a wagon, are laid out in neat rows. Neighbors arrive, greeting each other with quiet smiles and the holy kiss on the cheek among the men and women respectively. The ministers, who are just humble farmers themselves chosen to lead, begin the service with slow, soulful hymns sung in German. The melodies have no instruments accompanying, just human voices blending, resonating off the barn walls in an ancient harmony that makes your spine tingle. Young children sit on laps or play quietly at their mother's feet, learning early that this is a sacred time. The preacher delivers a heartfelt sermon about Jesus' teachings of love and humility. Everyone listens intently. No one checks a watch or phone. After hours of worship, the service ends with prayer. But the day's fellowship is only beginning. The host family and their neighbors bring out a hearty meal, bread, casseroles, pies, and they all share lunch, talking and laughing in the yard. For the Amish, faith isn't confined to an hour on Sunday. It's a living, breathing part of every decision and every day. This gathering reinforces their bond to God and to each other, recentering their lives on the values their faith teaches. love, forgiveness, humility, community. Even on weekdays, an Amish family's faith shows in small rituals, morning and evening prayers, Bible readings, and the way even work is seen as service to God. Not all of us share the Amish religious tradition, but the lesson here is universal. Keeping faith or spirituality at the center means nurturing our spiritual life as carefully as we do our work or hobbies. It could be through organized religion, personal prayer, meditation, or simply a practice of reflection and gratitude. The key is to make room in our routine for the soul. Maybe that means starting the day with a short meditation or a thankful thought, attending a church or community gathering regularly to connect with something larger than ourselves, or ending the day by reflecting on what we're grateful for or who we helped. Having faith at the center is about grounding ourselves in our values and beliefs, whatever they may be. It gives life meaning and helps us handle hardships with grace. The Amish show a serene confidence in their daily lives that stems from this spiritual grounding. When we, too, keep our faith or core values front and center, we create an inner compass. Storms will come in life, but with that compass, we won't lose our way. We're reminded that we're part of something bigger, a community, a divine plan, or the human family, and that gives us hope and purpose each day. 14. Be honest and sincere. At the break of dawn every Saturday, Amish farmer Caleb hitches his horse to the wagon and heads to the nearby town market. By the time he sets up his stand, the sun is fully up, and the market bustles with locals and tourists. Caleb lays out baskets of plump tomatoes and crisp lettuce from his farm, and jars of homemade jam that his wife prepared. A woman visiting from the city stops by and selects a jar of strawberry preserves. She's not familiar with the honor system the Amish sometimes use, so she hands Caleb a $20 bill for the $5 jar, expecting change. In the flurry of the morning, she hurriedly walks off before he can count back her change. Realizing she's overpaid and already halfway down the street, Caleb flags down his young nephew. "Jacob, run and give her this, please," he says, pressing the crumpled bills into the boy's hand. Jacob chases after her and returns a moment later with a smile, saying the lady was surprised and thankful. To Caleb, there was never a question. Keeping the extra money wasn't right, even if she'd never have known. Later that morning, another regular customer greets Caleb warmly. He had bought produce last week and discovered a small bag of potatoes was missed in his purchase. He offers to pay for it now. Caleb chuckles and shakes his head. "I trust it all evened out somehow." "Don't worry about it." They both know that in an Amish market stand, exact accounts aren't as important as mutual trust. Caleb's straightforward dealings have earned him a reputation. People say his handshake is as good as any contract. Honesty is a cornerstone of Amish life, from business to personal interactions. They teach their children from the crib that lying lips are not acceptable and that your word should be dependable. In a small community, trust is like gold. One falsehood can harm relationships for a long time. So they practice truthfulness, even in the smallest matters. How refreshing would it be if all of us did the same? In our world, honesty sometimes feels under threat. White lies, little cheats, or bending the truth can become commonplace. But when we're honest and sincere, we build a foundation of trust with those around us. It means telling the truth kindly but firmly, admitting our mistakes instead of covering them up, and treating others fairly even when we could take advantage. It's returning the extra change a cashier gives by mistake, or being open with a friend rather than saying what they want to hear. Living honestly simplifies life. We don't have to keep track of stories or feel guilt over deceit. Like Caleb, we can become people whom others know they can rely on. The Amish example reminds us that a clear conscience and a trustworthy reputation are far more valuable than any profit gained by dishonesty. In the end, honesty is not just about morality, it's about living in alignment with truth, which brings peace to our hearts and our communities. 15th, show generosity and kindness. On a blustery January night, an English, non-Amish traveler named Mark found himself stranded on a country road in Ohio, his car having skidded into a ditch. With no cell reception and the sky growing dark, he felt a pang of panic until he saw the faint glow of lanterns bobbing toward him. It was an Amish neighbor, Eli, and his teenage son who had noticed the car lights in trouble. They arrived in their buggy, and without hesitation, offered Mark shelter. Grateful and shivering, Mark climbed into the buggy, and they took him to their nearby farmhouse. Eli's wife already had the wood stove burning brightly and a spare quilt warming by the hearth. They welcomed this stranger as if he were an old friend. She handed Mark a mug of steaming tea and insisted he take the most comfortable chair. Over the next hours, they shared a simple hot meal of stew and fresh bread. Mark was struck by how this family with so few modern comforts could offer such abundant hospitality. The children offered him pie, and even the shy young daughters brought him extra blankets for the night with warm smiles. By morning, Eli had coordinated with a passing neighbor who owned a tractor to help pull Mark's car out. Mark tried to offer money and thanks, but Eli just shook his head. "I'm glad we could help." Safe travels home. It wasn't a big deal in Eli's eyes, just the right thing to do for someone in need. Mark drove away not only with his car restored, but with his faith in the kindness of people restored too. Generosity in Amish culture isn't about writing big checks or grand gestures. It's woven into everyday life. Sharing food, donating time, taking care of a neighbor's farm when he's ill, or stitching a quilt for a newly married couple. They quietly ensure no one in their community goes hungry or lonely, and their kindness often extends beyond their own circles, as Mark discovered on that cold night. For us, acts of generosity and kindness can be just as meaningful. Opportunities to be kind are all around us, if we pay attention. It could be inviting a new neighbor over for coffee, cooking a meal for a friend who's sick, or offering a ride to someone whose car broke down. It might be as simple as genuinely listening to someone who needs to talk, or sending an unexpected note of encouragement. We don't have to have much to give. Sometimes giving our time, our care, or our skills is the most precious gift. The Amish show that true kindness asks for nothing in return. It's given freely, from the heart. And yet, such generosity often comes back around in the form of strong bonds and a supportive community. In a world that can sometimes feel cold or self-focused, choosing kindness makes a profound difference. Each small act, like a lantern in the dark, can light someone's way. We might not change the whole world, but for that one person, at that one moment, we can be the warmth and light they needed. That is the enduring power of simple kindness. (16) Spend wisely and live within your means. When 20-year-old Hannah married Jacob in an Amish wedding one crisp November, the whole community came to celebrate with a day of food and fellowship. After the honeymoon, which for them was a few quiet days visiting relatives, the young couple settled into a modest one-room house on Jacob's parents' farm. It wasn't much, just a cozy cottage, really, with a small kitchen and a loft for sleeping. But it was theirs. They furnished it with hand-me-down wooden chairs, a table Jacob built as a teenager, and quilts sewn by Hannah's mother. They had no debt from a fancy ceremony or an exotic trip. Everything was done simply and paid for. Over the next years, Jacob worked hard in his harness shop, saving every spare dollar in a metal tin they kept tucked in a cupboard. Hannah contributed by selling her homemade jams and taking in sewing work. Their dream was to buy a farm of their own. It took nearly 7 years of frugal living, growing their own food, mending clothes instead of buying new, sharing one buggy and one horse with Jacob's family. But finally, the day came. With their savings and a bit of help from both their parents, they made a down payment on a small farm down the road. There was still a mortgage to pay, one of the few times Amish might take a modest loan, but they continued their thrifty ways and paid it off early. They did it by budgeting carefully and avoiding luxuries. For them, a night out was a sing-along with friends or a homemade ice cream social, not an expensive restaurant. When their first child was born, the crib was the same one Jacob had slept in as a baby, refurbished by his own hands. Through living within their means, Hannah and Jacob built a secure, happy life without the weight of heavy debt or financial stress. This story of financial prudence is common in Amish communities. They are generally excellent savers, often running family businesses that survive on slim margins but careful planning. It's rare to see ostentatious purchases. Impressing the neighbors with stuff is just not a thing for them. Instead of credit cards and big loans, they use layaway plans, community funds, or simply patience until they can afford something outright. Now, most of us live in a money-driven society where debt and spending are complex issues. Not everyone can live exactly like the Amish, but the principle of spending wisely and avoiding unnecessary debt is more relevant than ever. Maybe it means distinguishing between wants and needs. Do we need the latest phone upgrade, or can the current one last another year? Can we cook at home a bit more and eat out a bit less to save some money? If we have debts, perhaps set up a plan to chip away at them steadily. Create a budget that ensures we don't spend more than we earn, leaving some aside for savings if possible, even if it's a small amount. The peace of mind that comes from financial stability is priceless. The Amish enjoy that peace by keeping their desires modest and their expenses in check. They remind us that true wealth isn't in flashy expenditures, but in having what you need and a little extra to share or save, free from the chains of constant worry about bills. Living within our means might require discipline and maybe a few sacrifices of luxury, but it rewards us with freedom. Freedom from debt and the stress that comes with it, and the freedom to focus on family, faith, and community without the shadow of financial strain. 17. Take time to rest and reflect. In the Amish way of life, one day each week stands apart from the rest. From sunset on Saturday to sunset on Sunday, a hush falls over labor and business. The fields are left alone, the tools put away. Sunday is the Lord's Day and a family day, a time for rest, worship, and simple pleasures. Imagine a Sunday afternoon in an Amish community. The church service has ended at noon, and families return home after lingering to chat with friends. A peaceful calm settles. At the Lapp household, the chores even for the animals were done early, so now there's a delightful emptiness on the schedule. Father and sons change out of their formal church clothes and take a slow stroll down the lane, simply enjoying the mild weather and each other's company. Mother and daughters sit in the shade of a big maple tree, reading scripture, or perhaps writing letters to relatives in another state, a favorite quiet Sunday activity. A few children nap, a few others play tag in the yard, their laughter echoing but not disturbing anyone. Laughter is welcome on a day of rest. By late afternoon, the family gathers on the porch. They might sing a few hymns together softly, or just watch the clouds drift. No one is checking the time. Supper is cold cuts and leftovers. No heavy cooking today. As dusk approaches, Grandpa and Grandma join them from next door, and the family shares a simple meal and storytelling as crickets begin to chirp. This day of rest is like a deep, cleansing breath before the work week begins again on Monday. It refuels their spirits as much as their bodies. Contrast this with the way many of us spend our days off, often cramming them with errands, catching up on housework, or hustling to the next event. Even our rest days can leave us feeling just as tired. The Amish practice of keeping a Sabbath, a true day of rest, offers a powerful lesson. We all need downtime to restore ourselves, both mentally and physically. Now, not everyone can take an entire day off from responsibilities, but we can start with carving out a few hours of genuine rest in a week. Maybe Sunday mornings or evenings can be reserved for things that rejuvenate rather than tasks. It could be spending unhurried time with family, reading a book, taking a quiet walk, or sitting on the porch with a glass of iced tea, doing absolutely nothing without guilt. Turn off the work email, let the phone go to voicemail, and give yourself permission to just be for a while. Even daily, finding a small ritual of calm, morning coffee in silence, or prayer meditation at a consistent time, can act as a mini Sabbath. We might be surprised at how our productivity and mood improve after we've given ourselves that break. The Amish show that rest is not lazy. It's sacred. By observing a regular time of rest and reflection, we recharge our souls and remember that we are human beings, not just human doings. In the quiet moments, we often find clarity, creativity, and gratitude that hide from us in the rush of everyday life. 18. Choose peace over conflict. One summer, an Amish farmer named Dan noticed that the boundary fence between his field and his English neighbor's property had been moved. It seemed the neighbor, who was new to the area and unfamiliar with Amish ways, had inadvertently taken over a strip of Dan's land while erecting a new fence. That strip wasn't huge, but it did cut into Dan's best cornfield. Any other farmer might have marched over in anger or called a lawyer. But Dan, true to his upbringing, decided on a different approach. He hitched up his horse and wagon and loaded it with a basket of freshly picked tomatoes and a homemade pie his wife had baked. Then he went to visit the neighbor. Greeting him kindly, Dan politely brought the mistake to the neighbor's attention. The man, who had braced himself for a fight when he saw Dan coming, was disarmed by this gentle approach. Embarrassed, he apologized profusely, offering to move the fence immediately. Before they even discussed the fence, Dan insisted the neighbor's family accept the tomatoes and pie as a gesture of friendship. They ended the meeting not only with a plan to correct the fence line, but with mutual respect. The neighbor later told others in amazement, "He could have been angry, but instead he brought me a pie." That neighbor became one of Dan's good friends and staunchest allies, always quick to watch over Dan's property whenever the Amish family was away. By choosing a path of peace, Dan turned a potential feud into a friendship. The Amish are known as peaceful people. They take seriously the biblical directive to turn the other cheek and live it out by avoiding lawsuits, violence, or revenge. Historically, they've even been conscientious objectors in times of war, serving as medics or in community service, rather than picking up arms. While most of us may never be tested in that extreme way, we face smaller conflicts all the time. Disagreements with coworkers, family spats, road rage incidents, social media arguments. In those moments, we have a choice: escalate the conflict or seek peace. Choosing peace doesn't mean surrendering our rights. It means handling disputes with calm and compassion instead of aggression. Maybe it means responding to a rude comment with kindness, or not responding at all, as the Amish often do when tourists are less than polite. It could mean being the first to apologize and make amends with a sibling after a long-held grudge, even if we feel we were right. Or perhaps it's resisting the urge to win an argument with our spouse and instead working together to find common ground. When conflicts arise, we can take a breath and ask ourselves, is being right worth damaging this relationship? Often it's not. The Amish model shows that by keeping voices soft, intentions pure, and tempers cool, most quarrels can be resolved or even avoided. Peace is powerful. It heals relationships and sets a tone that others may follow. In a loud world, a gentle answer can indeed turn away wrath. We might not always succeed, but aiming for peace means we handle things with dignity and leave the door open for understanding and harmony. And as Dan's neighbor learned, sometimes a simple olive branch, or a tomato and a pie, can mend fences both literally and figuratively. 19th. Pass down traditions and knowledge. On a chilly autumn evening, the Fisher family gathers in the big farmhouse kitchen for a special yearly tradition. By lamplight, Grandma Fisher is teaching her twin granddaughters, Ruth and Naomi, how to make apple butter the old-fashioned way. A huge copper kettle sits on the stove, filled with peeled apples, cider, and spices. The twins, now 13, carefully stir the bubbling mixture with a long wooden spoon, just as Grandma's mother taught her when she was a girl. As the sweet aroma fills the house, Grandma Fisher shares stories of the old days. She tells the girls how her mother would cook apple butter over an open fire and how neighbors would come help stir during apple harvest time. The girls listen with rapt attention, knowing these tales by heart, yet never tiring of them. At the table, Grandpa whittles a small wooden doll for their younger sister, using a pocket knife he's had for 50 years. He hums a hymn softly while he works. Nearby, their father and brothers are repairing an old horse harness, a skill passed from father to son for generations. The family could easily buy a new harness, but there's pride in knowing how to mend things yourself. 3 generations are under one roof this night, each sharing what they know: recipes, stories, skills, songs. When the apple butter is finally done, everyone gets a spoonful to taste, each noticing that it's just a little different from last year's batch because Grandma let Ruth and Naomi add their own pinch of cinnamon. The girls beam with pride at carrying on this tradition. They know one day they'll teach their own children the same, preserving not just a recipe, but a piece of their heritage. The Amish place great importance on handing down their way of life to the next generation. With no modern media or higher formal education, most of what Amish children learn comes from family and community. They learn to quilt by sitting beside their mother and grandmother, stitch by stitch. They learn to farm by following their father into the fields from the time they can walk, absorbing the knowledge of soil and seasons. They learn their faith by hearing their elders pray and sing the old hymns. In this way, each generation stays linked to those before it. In our contemporary world, many traditions can fade as times change and families scatter. But there is immense value in preserving whatever traditions and knowledge we can, be it cultural heritage, family recipes, or simple life lessons. Passing down traditions gives younger generations a sense of identity and belonging, and it gives older generations a sense of purpose and legacy. Maybe your family has roots in a certain country with unique customs. Why not cook that traditional dish with your grandchildren and tell them about your ancestors? Or perhaps you have a skill, a way of fixing cars, knitting a scarf, or building a campfire that you could teach a younger person who might not learn it elsewhere. Even values can be a tradition we pass on. Telling stories about times when honesty or courage made a difference in your life can impart those values to the young. We all have wisdom earned through years of living. Sharing it is one of the greatest gifts we can give. The Amish remind us that we are bridges between the past and the future. By passing on what we know and cherish, we keep those good things alive and ensure that the chain of wisdom remains unbroken. Conclusion. These 20 lessons from Amish life are gentle reminders of enduring truths. They come from a people who have chosen to live apart in many ways, yet their wisdom is universal. In the Amish world, family comes first, community means lending a hand, and faith, humility, and honesty guide each day. They show us the beauty of simplicity, the power of patience, and the grace of forgiveness. Most of all, they remind us that technology and modern conveniences, for all their benefits, can never replace the warmth of a close family, the support of good neighbors, or the peace of a clear conscience. We may not adopt an Amish lifestyle, but we can certainly learn from their example. By incorporating even a few of these simple life lessons, like being more present with loved ones, staying humble, or finding time to rest, we can bring a bit of Amish wisdom into our own lives. And in doing so, we may rediscover a sense of community, contentment, and purpose that feels like coming home to values we should never forget. There's something comforting about stepping into an Amish kitchen. It's not just the aroma of fresh bread or the gentle clatter of enamel pots. It's the quiet, the kind that comes when life slows down, just enough for you to notice the little things. The way butter melts into warm bread, the way the house fills with the scent of cinnamon and apples, the way hands, weathered and strong, knead dough the same way their grandmothers did. Amish cooking isn't about perfection. It's not trendy or Instagram-worthy. It's about nourishment, about family, about using what you have and making it matter. In a world overflowing with processed food, frozen dinners, and drive-through meals, Amish kitchens remind us that simplicity is not only enough, it's beautiful. So let's spend a little time in that kitchen together. No timers, no fancy gadgets. Just honest ingredients, humble tools, and the kind of wisdom that only comes from generations of passing recipes by word of mouth. Along the way, I'll share how to adapt each recipe to what you have, why the Amish do things the way they do, and how even the simplest dish can become a family favorite. Let's begin, as the Amish always do, with bread. Homemade Amish. White bread is soft, slightly sweet, and deeply comforting. It's made with warm water, sugar, dry yeast, salt, oil, and good old all-purpose flour. Unlike European-style crusty loaves, this bread has a tender crumb and a pillowy texture. Why the sugar and oil? They help keep the bread soft for days, ideal for families without refrigeration, or for older folks who need something gentle to chew. But here's the beauty of it. You can adapt it. Cut the sugar in half if you prefer a more savory taste. Replace the oil with melted butter or even lard if you want a richer flavor. Just remember, butter makes a softer crust, while lard makes it flakier. Want more nutrition? Swap out 2 cups of white flour for whole wheat. It'll be denser, yes, but you'll gain fiber and a nutty flavor that pairs beautifully with apple butter. And speaking of comfort, chicken corn soup is more than soup. It's warmth in a bowl. It begins with a whole chicken, gently simmered for hours until the broth is golden and rich. Then, you add sweet corn, simple herbs like parsley and pepper, and finally, the Amish twist. Rivals. These are tiny dumplings made from flour and egg, crumbled right into the broth by hand. This soup is ideal for chilly nights, recovering from a cold, or any time you need to feed a crowd with just a chicken and a prayer. No canned broth. No bouillon cubes. Just honest flavor, developed slowly. If rivals feel intimidating, don't worry. You can use egg noodles or even barley. The point isn't to be exact, but to make something hearty and filling with what you've got. It's not fast food, but it is real food. Now let's talk dessert, specifically shoofly pie. Made with molasses, hot water, and a crumbly brown sugar topping, it's sticky, rich, and oddly elegant for something so rustic. It's called shoofly because flies loved the smell, and folks had to shoo them away as it cooled by the window. True story. Molasses isn't something most modern pantries keep around, but here's the thing. It was once the sweetener of choice in many American kitchens. If it's too bold for your taste, you can mellow it out with maple syrup or brown rice syrup. The texture won't be quite the same, but the pie will still have that old-fashioned charm. The biggest strength of shoofly pie? It keeps incredibly well. No fridge needed. The downside? It's very sweet, more of a small slice treat than an everyday snack, but on a cool evening with coffee, it's pure nostalgia. For something lighter, Amish macaroni salad offers a bright counterpoint. This isn't your typical deli version drowned in mayo. The Amish dressing includes mayonnaise, yellow mustard, vinegar, and sugar, a sweet tangy balance that wakes up your taste buds. Celery and onion bring crunch, while chopped hard-boiled eggs add richness. Sweet pickles? That's the Amish magic. They lift the whole thing. But if pickles aren't your thing, try grated apple for sweetness or chopped dill for something fresher. This dish shines at potlucks and picnics. Just be cautious in the heat. Mayo doesn't love the sun. One trick? Use Greek yogurt instead. It's tangy, creamy, and holds up better if you're dining outdoors. Mornings in Amish country often begin with baked oatmeal. This isn't mushy stovetop oatmeal, it's more like a soft breakfast cake, golden on top, custardy inside. Made with rolled oats, eggs, milk, brown sugar, cinnamon, and a splash of oil or melted butter, it's a warm hug on a plate. Baked oatmeal is incredibly forgiving. No brown sugar? Use honey or mashed bananas. Out of milk? Almond or oat milk works too. Want more texture? Add walnuts, raisins, or blueberries. It's easy to make ahead, reheats beautifully, and doesn't feel like a compromise. And for anyone managing blood sugar, you can have the sweetener and still get a satisfying dish. Now for something savory again, Amish meatloaf with oats. Why oats instead of breadcrumbs? Because oats were cheap, always on hand, and helped stretch meat farther, essential in large families. And bonus, oats add texture and keep the loaf moist without getting mushy. You'll find the usual suspects: ground beef, eggs, milk, chopped onions. But the Amish top theirs with a sweet sauce made from ketchup, mustard, and brown sugar. If that's not your thing, you can switch to tomato paste and Worcestershire for a Tangier glaze. The only real caution? Don't overmix, or you'll end up with a dense brick instead of a tender slice. No Amish pantry is complete without apple butter. Unlike jam, it's cooked down for hours until it's thick, dark, and velvety. Just apples, sugar, cinnamon, cloves. No pectin, no preservatives. It's a perfect spread for bread, or swirl it into plain yogurt for a simple dessert. It's low-fat, shelf-stable, and incredibly versatile. Don't have time to stand by the stove? A slow cooker does the job beautifully. Just toss in the ingredients and let it simmer all day. Best of all, your house will smell like autumn, even in the middle of summer. Want to try your hand at pasta? Amish egg noodles are as simple as it gets. Flour, eggs, and salt. Roll them thin, cut by hand, and dry them on a rack. No pasta machine, no fancy semolina flour, just patience and a good rolling pin. You can boil them in chicken broth for instant comfort food, or toss them in butter as a side dish. They're chewier than boxed noodles, which is exactly the point. Short on time? Use store-bought egg noodles. But know this, once you've tasted homemade, there's no going back. Another bread variation worth knowing: Amish potato rolls. The secret ingredient is mashed potatoes, leftover or freshly made, kneaded right into the dough. The result? Rolls that are impossibly soft, slightly sweet, and stay fresh for days. Potato starch holds moisture, which is why these are a favorite at weddings, church suppers, and holidays. They freeze well, too. Just warm them up and they're like new. If you don't have mashed potatoes, instant flakes work in a pinch. Not perfect, but close enough. And finally, let's end with joy. Whoopie pies. 2 soft chocolate cakes sandwiching a cloud of marshmallow cream. It's said Amish kids would yell, "Whoopie!" when they found one in their lunch pail. That's the kind of delight we could all use a little more of. If you want to get creative, try vanilla cakes with peanut butter filling, or pumpkin cakes with cream cheese. The base is simple: sugar, eggs, cocoa, milk, flour, and it's all mixed by hand. They're messy. They're fun. They don't last long on the counter. And that's just the way it should be. In the end, Amish cooking isn't just about what's on the plate. It's about intention, slowing down, making do, sharing. Every recipe comes with a story of a grandmother's hands, a Sunday picnic, a winter night by the fire. You don't need to be Amish to live this way. You just need to look at your ingredients, your tools, and your time, and use them with care. Even if all you do is bake 1 loaf of bread or stir 1 pot of soup this week, you'll feel it. That small shift toward something simpler, toward something real. Thank you for spending this time in the kitchen with me. If these recipes reminded you of home or inspired you to try something new, let me know in the comments. And if your hands smell like cinnamon by the end of the day, well, you're doing something right. See you next time, friends. Stay warm, stay curious, and maybe bake that pie. It's just after 5 a.m. when the first light cracks over the cornfields. The house is quiet except for the crackle of the wood stove and the soft steps of a woman beginning her Monday. Laundry day. 1. Heating the water. Laundry day in an Amish household begins while the rest of the world is still asleep. It starts not with the push of a button, but with firewood and patience. In the soft blue light of early dawn, before the rooster crows, an Amish woman slips quietly into her kitchen, ties her apron, and feeds kindling into the wood-burning stove. A large black kettle, often cast iron, sits heavy on the stove's iron plate. It was placed there the night before. The goal is to heat at least 15 to 20 gallons of water to near boiling. This is not an instant task. It takes time, attention, and a steady fire. There are no thermostats. She checks the water's temperature with her hand, feeling the steam rise and noting how fast it fogs up the window near the sink. By 6 a.m., the first buckets are ready. Each bucket is carried outside, carefully, and poured into a galvanized metal wash tub that rests on a sturdy wooden platform on the back porch. The same setup has been used for decades, unchanged. Modern lesson. Even if you're not heating water on a wood stove, taking time to pre-soak heavily soiled clothes in warm water, especially with vinegar or washing soda, can loosen dirt more effectively than any machine cycle. It's not just old-fashioned, it's smart. Second, soap from scratch. Amish households don't buy colorful jugs of scented detergent from the store. They make their own. It's a simple mix: grated homemade lye soap, or old-fashioned laundry bars like Fell's naphtha, washing soda, and borax. That's it. The grated soap is stirred into the hot water until it melts, creating a cloudy solution that smells clean. Not floral, not perfumed, just clean. It's the kind of scent that reminds you of sun-dried sheets and old linen closets. They don't use bleach. They don't need fabric softener. Vinegar does the trick. For extra tough stains, some add lemon juice or even boiled horse chestnut tea, a folk remedy passed down through generations. Modern lesson: you can make your own laundry soap at home with bar soap, soda, and borax, not just to save money, but to avoid harsh chemicals and reduce packaging waste. Clean doesn't have to come with a brand name. 3. Washing. The Amish use hand-cranked wringer washers, heavy mechanical machines often set up in sheds, porches, or utility rooms. The washer consists of a large round tub with an agitator in the center, powered by a handle or sometimes a small gas engine. It's loud in its own way, but not like a modern machine. It clunks and splashes and churns. You load in the whites first, always the whites, and begin cranking, slowly, methodically. The shirts begin to twist and swirl, the water grows cloudy, and the rhythm becomes almost meditative. No buttons, no cycles, no screens telling you what to do, just effort and instinct. Modern lesson: consider washing delicate items or stained garments by hand in a tub or sink. It slows you down and gives you control, and it can be surprisingly satisfying. 4. Rinsing. Once the clothes are washed, they are removed from the tub and dropped into the rinse water, often 1 or 2 additional tubs set up beside the washer. The first rinse sometimes contains vinegar to help strip away residue. The second is clear and cool, ensuring the fabric is left truly clean. Then comes the wringer. 2 rollers, mounted on top of the washer, are turned by hand. Garments are fed through carefully, squeezed flat, and emerge damp but no longer dripping. You can feel the weight of the water leaving the cloth. It's like watching labor become result. You have to be careful with buttons, zippers, and delicate seams. Experienced hands know just how fast to feed each item, when to pause, when to reverse. Real-life example. In Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Ruth Beeler's wringer washer has been in use since 1969. She keeps a small basket of clothespins nearby, along with a folded towel to catch any drips. She says, "Wringer washing teaches you to pay attention. If you rush, you ruin it." Modern lesson: even in homes with washers, using a manual wringer or hand-rolling clothes before drying can drastically cut down on drying time and energy costs, especially for towels and jeans. 5. Hanging the laundry. Outside, the clothesline is ready. Many Amish use a pulley system that stretches from their back porch to a tall pole or tree across the yard. They can stand in one place and send the clothes outward, high into the air. The line fills in a certain order. Whites first, then pastels, then darks and heavy garments. Each item is secured with sturdy wooden clothespins. Shirts are hung by the hem, socks in pairs, towels by the corners. There's no rush. The wind is doing half the work now. And indeed, the Amish believe the sun is the best bleach. It kills bacteria, lifts stains, and leaves behind a smell you simply can't bottle. Modern lesson: hanging clothes, even occasionally, can extend their life, reduce fading, save electricity, and connect you to the weather, the wind, and a slower pace of life. 6. Ironing. Once dry, certain clothes are ironed, not with a plug-in iron, but with cast iron pieces heated directly on the wood stove. Some Amish women keep 2 or 3 irons in rotation, 1 in use, 1 heating, and 1 cooling slightly. There's no steam button, no temperature control. You know the iron is ready when water flicked on it sizzles. Ironing becomes a ritual, a quiet, repetitive motion. Collar, sleeve, hem, turn. It's not a chore. It's a closing gesture, like sealing a letter or putting the last stitch in a quilt. Modern lesson: try ironing a shirt or cloth napkin slowly, without distraction. It's an underrated form of mindfulness, one swipe at a time. 7. More than clean. Laundry in the Amish world is more than a necessity. It's a rhythm, a teaching tool, and a spiritual practice. Young girls learn not by being told, but by watching in silence, folding, sorting, handing over clothespins. There are no lectures, no checklists, just example and repetition. Each motion, heating the water, scrubbing by hand, lifting the line, is a kind of prayer in motion, a quiet respect for time, effort, and simplicity. Modern takeaway. In a world obsessed with convenience, the Amish remind us, cleanliness doesn't come from technology, it comes from care. Clean hands, clean routines, and a clean conscience. Final thoughts. You don't have to give up your washing machine. But maybe, next time the sun is out, you hang your sheets on a line. Maybe you make your own laundry powder. Or maybe you just slow down and fold with intention. Laundry will always be a chore, but it can also be a choice. To do something with care. To teach by doing. To create rhythm in a noisy world. Because in the end, the Amish aren't just showing us how to do laundry, they're showing us how to live slowly, simply, and with grace. The rooster crows. Somewhere in Pennsylvania or Ohio, a wooden window creaks open, letting in the crisp morning air. A middle-aged woman ties her apron behind her back and walks to the kitchen with a quiet smile. The smell of the wood stove fills the house. It's Monday. She doesn't reach for a cereal box or a frozen waffle. Instead, she lifts the heavy lid of a cast-iron pot that's been simmering since dawn. A thick, creamy cornmeal mush. On the side, there's a jar of homemade apple butter, made last fall during the apple harvest, when the whole family peeled and cored apples by hand for hours. That effort is now spread on toast, along with fresh churned butter, pale and slightly sweet. Her husband comes in from the barn, boots muddy from milking. He washes up with a bar of lye soap and sits at the long wooden table where thick-cut smoked bacon, cured in their own smokehouse, sizzles on the stove. There are no brand-name yogurts here, no fancy granola, just real food made from scratch, eaten together in peace. Lesson 1. You don't need a modern kitchen to eat well. You just need time, intention, and a bit of elbow grease. Lunchtime arrives, and the kitchen is filled with the sound of slicing, stirring, and a few quiet hums from a hymn. On the table, homemade chicken noodle soup. But this isn't from a can. The chicken was one of their own, an old laying hen who had slowed down. She was respectfully butchered and stewed with onions, garlic, and bay leaves. The noodles were hand-rolled on the counter by 2 young girls earlier that morning, laughing as they dusted each other with flour. The vegetables? Pulled from the root cellar, carrots, turnips, and leeks kept crisp in sawdust since autumn. Next to the soup, there's cornbread baked in a cast-iron skillet, its edges perfectly crisp, served with butter and a drizzle of honey from a nearby hive. And because nothing is wasted, leftover soup is poured into a crock pot to become part of Wednesday's stew. Dinner that night is a celebration of preservation. Meatloaf with oats, tender and juicy, made with ground pork from the fall slaughter. Mashed potatoes with the skins on, because that's where the nutrients live. Green beans, bright, firm, and canned at the end of summer. Pickled beets add a splash of red to the table, their tang cutting through the richness of the meal. Dessert is a quiet affair. A small bowl of stewed apples with cinnamon, warmed on the stove. Lesson 2. The Amish don't throw food out. They stretch it, reuse it, preserve it, and in doing so, honor the work that went into it. Tuesday opens with the smell of molasses and cinnamon. Baked oatmeal was placed in the oven before sunrise. The texture is dense and comforting, full of raisins and walnuts. Leftover slices are wrapped in cloth for snacks later in the day. Lunch is modest. Ham and cheese sandwiches on dark rye bread, homemade mustard, and crunchy pickles from the big crock in the pantry. A small jar of hard-boiled eggs dyed brown from beet brine sits in the center of the table. Dinner is hearty. Beef stew bubbling on the stove, thickened naturally with barley. The beef was bartered from a neighbor whose cow had calved last week. Potatoes, carrots, and cabbage float beneath the surface, soaking up flavor. For dessert, blackberry cobbler, made with berries picked by the children and frozen in cloth sacks. The crust is biscuit-like, hand-formed, imperfect, but delicious. Wednesday begins with fried cornmeal mush, sliced into slabs and crisped in a cast-iron pan. It's served with sorghum syrup. Some add cream. Others eat it plain. At noon, there's a big pot of bean soup, simmered with ham bone and onions. Buttermilk biscuits are baked in the oven, and as they rise, the kitchen fills with a warm, comforting scent that reaches every room. Dinner is fried chicken. Each piece is soaked in salt water overnight, rolled in flour seasoned with paprika and pepper, and fried in a cast-iron pot filled with rendered lard. The crust crackles. On the side, cabbage slaw with vinegar and sweet corn from the freezer. Dessert is rhubarb pie, tart and floral. Lesson 3. Health isn't about fads. It's about whole food, portion control, and honoring where your food comes from. Thursday is baking day. The kitchen becomes a symphony of movement, kneading, rolling, brushing with butter. Loaves of white bread, pans of cinnamon rolls, and soft pretzels begin to crowd the cooling racks. Breakfast is simply scrambled eggs and toast with apple jelly. Lunch is cold, potato salad with vinegar, cucumber spears, and cheese wedges wrapped in wax paper. Dinner is a family favorite, vegetable pot pie. The dough is flaky, the filling creamy with garden peas, carrots, and chopped potatoes. It's comfort in every bite. Dessert, tapioca pudding, the old-fashioned kind, stirred on the stove until it jiggles. Lesson 4. Cook in rhythm. Use slow days to prepare for the busy ones, and make space for family while you do. Friday arrives with flapjacks, thick and hearty, served with butter and real maple syrup tapped from their own trees back in March. A few sausage patties sizzle in the pan. Lunch is tuna salad with celery, chopped eggs, and sweet relish, served with pickled watermelon rind and thick rye crackers. Dinner. Fish, of course. Pan-fried trout, caught by the boys that morning. On the side, mashed potatoes mixed with cabbage, a dish their grandmother called colcannon. Vinegar-dressed slaw and applesauce complete the plate. Lesson 5. Eat what's available. Use what you've grown or caught. And remember, food connects generations. Saturday is a quieter day. Breakfast is pancakes with wild berry preserves and hot tea. Lunch, grilled cheese sandwiches with tomato soup made from canned tomatoes, grown last summer, blanched and jarred in sweat and sun. Dinner is pot roast, slow-cooked with onions, carrots, and a bay leaf tucked under the lid. It's served on a worn oak table passed down for 3 generations. For dessert, sugar cookies, the kind dusted with cinnamon and love. And then comes Sunday. No pots clatter, no burners burn. It's a day of rest. Breakfast is humble. Pastries from Saturday, a bowl of fruit, a cup of milk. After church, the whole family gathers for the biggest meal of the week. Roast chicken with stuffing, green beans with bacon, buttered corn, pickled eggs, and soft rolls with apple butter. Choufle pie is the final touch. Sweet molasses filling, a crumb topping, and a buttery crust. Dinner is cold soup, bread, and time spent in silence or soft conversation. Lesson 6. Rest is sacred. Plan ahead, slow down, and let food nourish the soul, not just the body. We often think we need more convenience, more ingredients, more technology to eat well. But a week in an Amish kitchen tells a different story. It reminds us that good food doesn't come from a factory. It comes from the garden, the cellar, the hands that knead the dough and stir the soup. It comes from slowing down, working with what you have, and sharing it with the people you love. Here, a meal is not a race. It's not a trend. It's a ritual, a quiet rhythm that says, we have enough. We are enough. So maybe you don't live on a farm. Maybe your stove has buttons and your milk comes in cartons. That's okay. You can still make a pot of soup from scratch. You can still sit at the table with your family, phones away, and eat a meal that warms more than just the belly. And maybe, just maybe, that's the secret the Amish have known all along. Not everything simple is easy, but everything meaningful is simple.